and welcome fellow bookworms and film fans. Welcome to this week's book review where we will be looking at The Glass Hotel by Emily St. John Mandel. And this was bought for me kindly at Christmas by my friend Daisy. And I'm not gonna lie, this was a very interesting book. It was very hard for me to grasp the genre of this book. And in the end, I still couldn't quite slot it into one. Also, I couldn't put it down, and yet I didn't feel satisfied when I finished it. Not to say that it's not a bad book. I just didn't quite understand where it'd gone. Because I'm very much one with sort of like, once something is finished, I'm like, ah, good, that's what's happened. But with this one, I'm still not sure. I feel like I'm going to probably have to read this book again to really truly understand what's happened. Now, the story seems to follow a few characters and dips between them over a very wide period of years. Now, it involves estranged families, a Ponzi scheme, and a death, I think, as well. We're never quite clear on that one. So it follows Paul, Vincent, and Jonathan. Now, Vincent, just to let you know straight away, Vincent is in fact a woman, not a man. Just thought I'd let you know that. So, Paul is a drug addict. Vincent's her half sister, his half sister, and Vincent is a bartender until she's swept out of her feet by Jonathan, who's like this big manager of a company, and who takes her to a world with so much money that she doesn't know what she's doing with herself. And obviously, being a bartender and knowing that you're never really going to achieve that much. I mean, me and my friends Joe and Carisha, we were discussing sort of like lottery wins and what you'd do with it. Just letting you know, if I won the lottery, I would straight up buy a house, I would straight up buy a car, and then I would go on a all expenses paid, really great, big 5-star holiday, and then God knows. And then afterwards, I'll probably just live respectably even. But obviously, when you're literally just living paycheck to paycheck, when you're living on minimum wage, when you know, it is hard to sort of like, when you see this money and then you go, ooh, that could be for me. So, however, we find out that he's actually running a huge Ponzi scheme, which later comes crashing down around him and lands him in prison. Now, I still don't quite understand what a Ponzi scheme is. I've seen it in so many films, so many books I've read it in, and I still don't quite understand. I think my understanding is they take money from investors who are basically just normal people like myself and, you know, and you guys out there. You think you're investing in something, you think you're getting money back, but in actuality that money isn't going anywhere. It's not investing in anything. There's no company or anything like that. So I think that's what that is. I could be wrong, so if anybody does sort of understand Ponzi schemes better than I do, please leave it in the comments, because I really struggle to get it. It's like I do not understand the stock market whatsoever. I just don't. But I'm happy, at least I know my job, and I do my job quite well, so that's something. But anyway, so we sort of find out about that. Now, this book, I probably, reading the blurb, it's probably not one I would typically buy myself, and this is why I'm glad that Daisy bought it for me, because I'm sure, as you've seen, I've tried to get sort of like different books in different genres, but a lot of my books are murder mysteries, a lot of my books are detective novels, a lot of my books are sort of, you know, horror or thrillers or things like that. So I'm glad that if someone's buying me a book, they're buying me one that I wouldn't necessarily buy myself, because then it gets that wider range out there, because I do love reading, I really do, and any book, as is why I always tell people, if you recommend a book to me, I will buy it, I will read it, because I'm always looking for new things. But I tend to stick with the books that I like. I'll read a blurb and be like, oh, there's like a serial killer in this one, or oh, there's been murders in this one, and I'll go with it. Or there's ghosts or thrillers or horrors, and who knows. So at times with this, I felt like it was leading up to something and then it didn't quite get there. So we'd start, I'd read a chapter and it'd be like, oh, leading up, and then it just sort of fall flat. So at times I did feel a little bit deflated when I was reading it. And yeah, I got this book done in one day. Just like one day, which is why I can't quite grasp how I felt about it. Definitely a reread. Definitely reread The Glass Hotel. It's normally on my good hardback shelf book over, like hardbook shelf over there. So I found that at times I was a little bit bored with how it flowed, but I think the main reason for that is because I don't quite understand Ponzi schemes. I don't quite understand that genre, that area. So I think when it was sort of like giving information about that, I couldn't take it in, and I couldn't quite enjoy it. I think that could be why it was, because the characters themselves were really good, and they interacted very well with each other. Because you end up feeling really sorry for Vincent, because, you know, she goes from being a motherless child at 13 to looking after herself to being a trophy girlfriend to finally finding happiness and peace, and then, you know, unfortunately she dies. Well, we think she's dead. I'm not going to spoil the ending. She may or may not be dead, but that's kind of the death that we're looking at. But then on the opposite side, you've got her half-brother, Paul, who starts at rock bottom. He slowly gets a hand on his drug habit. He gets some margin of his success, but he never quite kicks the habit. Now, the hotel, I must admit, the hotel that's mentioned in this book sounds perfect. Because not a lot of people would like this, but anyone that knows me knows that when I go on holiday, I try to go on like walking holidays where I can explore, when I can, you know, I can go and find something. Like my hen party, brilliantly organised by my maid of honour Hannah, was at Centre Parks, and we did loads of activities and we went for walks and we just enjoyed ourselves. My honeymoon, me and my husband went to Whitby, and we just walked all around Whitby, which was absolutely just beautiful. We ended up walking to Robiners Bay and back, and to Sands End and back, and it was just, so I love nature and I love just being there. I couldn't live there all the time, but I love nature. And I love when I visit my family in Wales as well, because it's just, we get to go to like these beautiful places. And the fact that the hotel is described as being sort of on the edge of the wilderness, on the edge of the forest, and there's pretty much no reception there. You get there by a boat, and then you just kind of cut off from life, as it were. And that appeals to me sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. Yes, I am on YouTube, and yes, I am on Instagram, and yes, I am on Facebook. But at the end of the day, sometimes I just like getting away from everything, getting away from the constant like world, basically. So I love this idea of this little bubble of solace. And I must admit that does sound like bliss. Now, I will give this book a 3 out of 5. I would recommend it to people. As I said, I still don't quite know what it is. But I would give it a 3 out of 5. I would probably reread it to gain a grasp on it. The characters are very good. And I feel like if I knew a bit more about the financial aspects of Wall Street or whatever, I think I probably would have enjoyed bits of it a bit more. I did feel a bit deflated because the whole sort of like the blurb is like, and there's a murder, and you literally sat the entire book going, where's the murder, where's the murder? Well, I was. I don't know if anyone is as psychotic as me when I'm sat there going, and when's someone going to die? But yeah, so the fact that it was like right at the end, but it pulled in characters to investigate this murder that was like throughout the book. You saw these effects, and it was nicely written. And because it's a reread and it's not a book that I would immediately just give straight to charity, that's why I'm giving it a 3 out of 5, because I do want to read it again. Probably not for about a year or so, but I would definitely recommend this book to people. Now, obviously, you don't have to agree with everything that I say. If you disagree or agree with any of my comments, please leave them below. Don't forget to click subscribe to be alerted whenever a new video becomes available. But until then, remember to always keep it contento.